This is Jilliana Ranicar-Breese, and this is part 4 of my interview with John and Rose Skelton Pearson. Now, John, we were talking about, or you were talking, I should say, about Buddhism. And why did you give up Buddhism?
Well, I don't think that Buddhism is really like a religion. You know, I see it as a way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the meditation, the philosophy behind it. I found it was a bit kind of do as you're told, really. There's something for me about Buddhism which I actually find quite confining rather than liberating. I know a lot of people who would agree with me. And I left the whole Buddhist thing back in about 2012. By that time, I was running a yoga centre. I built a yoga centre.
In Manchester?
In Hebden Bridge. It's called Dale Yoga Centre. And I ran that for a number of years. And it was about that time, really, that I noted that some of the people in my class, some of my yoga students, had started taking up Tantra.
Uh-huh.
And I was kind of poo-pooing it because, you know, I'm a bit of a self-righteous purist, Jilliana, you know, to tell you the truth. I mean, I really can get on my high horse. Probably less so these days. But back then, what for me was really great was like the original Tantra, the Hindu and Buddhist Tantras, the stuff that people were doing, you know, a few hundred years ago.
Where did Tantra start?
Probably in India, probably like around the Kashmir kind of area. Really,
you better explain to me, what is Tantra?
Oh my God, okay, right.
Big question.
Big question.
Well, I mean, we've all heard the word Tantra, but how many people know what it is?
Well, you know, if
other than sex.
If you ask it, yeah, I mean, the sexual aspect is emphasised by what we would think of as Neo Tantrists, which is like the Tantra of the late 20th, early 21st century. And that's very different from the practices that were happening in India, particularly around Bengal, in the 19th, 18th century going back, and even today. So there's more of an emphasis on conscious sexuality, which is not a bad thing, you know. But like back in 2012, for me, that was like, it's all about sex. I mean, sex is very good, but, you know, don't expect to have lashings of rumpy-pumpy and, you know, like, think that you can legitimise it by calling it spiritual. It just seemed to me to be a whole load of old crap, basically. But that was my own clouded perception. What is Tantra? Well, if we're talking about what is Neo Tantra, let's say, what is a Tantra of the 21st century? You can ask 20 different people who practice it, you get 20 different answers. I think, you know, Rose has been doing this for like 12 years. I think you should ask Rose the definition of Tantra, and I'd like to make...
You're chickening out and passing the buck. I know you.
I'm a fearless man. I will take that in good humour.
Okay, Rose, take over.
All right, I would say my definition of Tantra then, so careful, I'm like emphasising the my.
Yes.
Is that it is about falling in love with life. And that means all of life, so in all of its aspects. So the ones that conventionally you might label as good, but equally the ones that you might label as bad. So it's about all of those things existing together and welcoming all of them. So yes, it involves the body, so it's about being embodied very definitely, but it's also about the connection between that and spirit. So it has the elements that you might associate with more traditional forms of spirituality, so the transcendence and connecting with divine, but in collaboration with being in your body, which is the bit that other spiritual traditions don't necessarily emphasize, if they do at all. So I think that's the thing that makes it different. And that is where the fixation that it's all about sex comes from.
How did you get into it?
Well.
And why?
How did I get into
it?
Was...
Because, I mean, you told me that you got into dance and bioenergy and, you know, 5 rhythms and that sort of thing. So did it lead on from there because it was connected with the body work?
Absolutely, but the way I got into it in the very first instance was almost it was completely random. I had gone to a 5 rhythms workshop because I was newly interested in that. And there I was eating my packed lunch in the middle of the day with a woman that I didn't know, and we were chatting. And she said, "Oh, I'm running a workshop next weekend. It's about sacred sexuality. I think you should come." And I didn't ask her any questions about it at all. I mean, it was completely off my radar. I didn't even know what sacred sexuality could possibly be, let alone what it was. So I asked her no questions. I just said, yes, I shall come. So the next week I packed up my car and I drove off to Herefordshire where this thing was, and it turned out to be, it was a 5-day workshop, so it was quite full on. That was quite a long
That's
workshop.
amazing. You didn't ask a single question.
I didn't ask.
I'd have grilled her.
I think the interesting thing was, so skipping forward to the end of the workshop, and I said goodbye to the woman who'd invited me. And what I had said to her was, if I had known what it was going to be before I came...
I'd have come.
No, I wouldn't have come.
I'm joking.
I definitely wouldn't have come. So I'm really pleased that I didn't know what it was going to be, because I wouldn't have come. I would have been like, oh my goodness, that sounds so scary. There is no way I'm going to go.
Well, what happened at the workshop?
Well, there were too many things to actually say what happened, but it was something that was completely outside my realm of experience. Just the paying attention to the body and the linking it to spirituality. So I was really thrilled at the end that I had done it. But I definitely would not have gone.
Well, what did it lead on to?
What did it lead on to after that?
Obviously, it was a life-changing experience.
Completely, yes, it was.
Yeah, but you haven't actually gone into what it was, what the essence was that changed your life and, your way of life.
I think at that point, obviously there are different things that unfolded after that, but at that point, it was simply the doing something which for me then was scary in the just the fact it was so new. It was something
But
I'd
you
never
haven't
done
said
before.
what it is or was.
Well, things like even like some of the exercises were done without clothes on. So
Completely naked.
yes, in that one, yes, they were. I mean, that is not
Okay.
what you'd expect from a beginner's workshop, but this wasn't a beginner's workshop.
Okay.
And because I hadn't asked any questions, I didn't know it wasn't a beginner's workshop.
Right.
So just the idea of...
But did you feel liberated taking all your clothes off in front of other people? How
Yeah,
did you
I
feel?
did.
You weren't embarrassed?
No, I wasn't embarrassed because everybody was doing it.
Right.
And that was the expectation.
Yes.
If I'd thought about it beforehand, I probably would have thought I would have been embarrassed and I
Right.
wouldn't want to do it. But
Right.
actually, I didn't. It was just... what was interesting was actually how quickly the idea of that became normal, and that was just
Okay.
what you did.
Okay.
And at the end of the workshop, I felt really liberated. The fact that I had done this, I had done something that felt scary to me.
So you were out of your comfort zone.
Completely out of my comfort
We'll
zone.
continue in the next section. Okay, I'll leave you there for the moment, and then you can reveal a bit more. Thank you.